Okay. So for estates are another starting thing that you'll be able to mess with before you even unpause your game. Obviously, still running with the Ottomans since they're my recommended brand new nation for new players, I should say. So with estates, different nations and different religions have different estates. This is going to look different based on what world area of the world you're in. If you're up here in Europe, it's going to look different. It's also going to look different if you're a monarchy, republic, etc. It'll look different if you're if you're a Hindu or Sunni nation here in India. You might have 5 estates. I mean, they're all going to be different, but the mechanics for estates are pretty similar no matter where you're at. There's going to be some basic things that you're going to be doing. Estates seem fairly complicated, but once you get used to them, they're very, very simple. There's a lot of advanced tactics you can use for estates, but there's very simple ways that I use them no matter how I play and no matter what I'm doing. The most important thing for estates is, for most players, what you can get from them monarch point wise. Since monarch points, I went over them earlier. The more monarch points you can get, the better. And so estates can give you free monarch points every 20 years. That's a pretty big deal since monarch, any extra monarch point is a huge advantage. This is also a huge advantage if you're playing single player or even co-op versus AI, because the AI does not use the estate interactions to get monarch points. So this can actually give you a big jump ahead of them, especially if you're playing like I normally do on hard, or let's say you're playing on very hard. This is what can try to help you keep up with the AI a bit, or even past them. So right here, you can gain 50 admin power, it shows you, from this interaction with this estate, the Ulema, your tax estate. So I can gain 50 admin points right now, and my estate loses 20 loyalty. Now, the loyalty is important because if an estate is under 40% loyalty, then they give you negatives. Whereas if they're 40% or higher, they give you positives. They give you bonuses. Now, most times, unless I'm in a really bad situation, let's say my economy is barely holding on, I'm making, let's say I'm making only 0.01 ducat positive right now, rather than positive 7. Keeping that tax modifier positive would be very important unless I had a huge bank, unless I had 500 or more extra ducats to let it slowly run off, and slowly siphon from. I don't want to go negative for my bonuses from the Ulema. So that negative 20 right there would be a big deal. But since I'm positive and I'm not really hurting economically, I don't care right now if my Ulema goes negative and gives me a negative bonus, because the monarch points honestly are going to be more important right now. But that said, 50 isn't all you can get from this. The higher your influence with your estates is, the higher your monarch point bonus will be. And it can be anywhere from, it can go 50, 100, or 150. 150 is the max. So what you're going to be doing when you initially are messing with this is you're going to be trying to get that to 150. Easiest way to do that, just do this right here. Seek support of the clergy. This will give you 10 influence for them, and you notice it'll also give you 15 loyalty. So even if you lose that 20 loyalty right now, they're still at 45% loyalty. So they'll still be giving you a bonus and giving you extra points. You see what it costs, though. It costs 5 prestige and 5 legitimacy. I kind of touched on prestige before. It's important. It gives you bonuses for everything. So you want to maintain positive prestige if you can help it. But I didn't touch on legitimacy. Legitimacy is pretty much the same thing. As long as it's high legitimacy, you get some basic bonuses from it. Low legitimacy gives you negatives, unrest and stuff like that. So you want to try to keep your legitimacy up if you can, but you're perfectly fine letting it drop to 70% legitimacy. That's still a fine amount. It's not going to hurt you. So right here, prestige and legitimacy, you just want to pay attention, because if you're, super low legitimacy, this might be something you want to avoid doing, because super low legitimacy can cause rebels, etc. A lot of problems. Since we don't have that issue right now, we're perfectly fine taking this. So we take it, and oh, look at that. We have a new bonus because we got our loyalty level higher. So now we also have a lower stability cost for pumping our stability up if we want to. So that's the higher you get with these guys, the more bonuses you're going to get. The higher you get, their loyalty and stuff like that. The one thing to say, though, the reason why we don't just try to max out influence and everything else, if an estate goes to 100% influence, it will cause what's known as a disaster for your country. It's a crisis event, pretty much. And so you want to try to avoid getting 100% influence with any of your estates because it's just bad. Just remember that for the basics. Getting a crisis event is bad. So you still want to get your influence up, though, because look right here. Now we're gaining 100 admin, but we're still not at that 150 point that I was talking about. So what you're going to be checking is what else can you do? Well, you can make a donation, but a donation only gives you loyalty, and you need influence to get that monarch point count up. So we're not going to worry about a donation unless we really needed that loyalty and we had the extra money to do it, sometime down the road. So we're going to ignore that for now. So instead, we're going to say, oh, look at this. So this doesn't give us any loyalty. It does give us influence. It also gives us an advisor, a level 3 advisor. Remember, that's something we covered before. Our advisor to level 1, level 2. This would give us access to a level 3 advisor if we wanted it, though. Remember, it would cost more because the higher level the advisor, the more it costs each month. And level 3 is not really something we want to afford right now. But we don't have to take the advisor. It just gives us access to it. But it also gives us 15 influence. So that's going to pump us up. And what we're targeting right now is 75 influence total. You want 75 influence because that gives you the 150 threshold for getting your monarch point. So this right here is going to pump us up just shy of 70. So we'll pop it. So now look at that. Extra influence. Now we have even higher bonuses. So that's also something to consider sometimes, is if you really want those bonuses versus the monarch points, you could always look at doing this for it, but I focus mainly on the monarch points. So, still not at the threshold. We're at 100 still. So, right here, we have another advisor that we can give. And also, you notice there's some extra text about this. It says it's a level 3 missionary strength advisor, which is the type we're using. But you also see in green letters, 25% cheaper. So what that means is that advisor is cheaper not only to hire, but also has a 25% cheaper monthly cost than a normal level 3 advisor. So if that's an advisor, if you have the money for it and that's the type of advisor or a type of advisor you'd like to use, this can be a really good way to get cheaper advisors to get even more monarch points rolling into your name. We're not going to be using it right now. We don't really have the economy to try to go for a level 3 advisor at the moment. But we do want that influence. You'll also notice there's a negative there. It says the Dhimmi estate is losing 15 loyalty. Now, the Dhimmi estate is only giving us +1 tolerance to heathens, and tolerance is nice, but we're not exactly worried about it right now. We don't have any big unrest happening. We still have 1.9 tolerance, so that'll still be positive tolerance even if the Dhimmi get pissed off. Though I can't remember what the negative is. We'll find out in a sec because we're still going to do that. So we're going to pop that and take that hit on the Dhimmi. Tolerance to heathens -0.5. Notice we have disloyal estates. So it also shows that's going to cost us extra technology cost. So that kind of sucks. Having an extra cost to your technology is a very bad thing. Now, it's not going to break us right now because our technology costs aren't super high. But if you're trying to race for other things that we'll cover later on, like institutions and stuff like that, which are part of your technology, this could be a really big factor to consider. For right now, though, we're not worried about it at all. And if you really are worried about it, you can always try to assign territory to your estates. And you do that in a different section here, but we'll go over that in a moment. Because that's another way also to get loyalty and to get influence up is by assigning territory to estates. So, anyways, the whole point we're covering, though, is look at that. We've gotten up to that 150 admin power. Even if we lose 20 loyalty, it's still going to be 45 loyalty. So we are good to go. So we're going to pop that. Look at that. Our admin jumped up. Still loyal, still getting bonuses. Good to go. Not near 100, so we're not worried about it. And advice, real quick, also for new players, try not to go Try to avoid hitting 90% influence when you're trying to get estates to give you their bonuses. The reason I say try to avoid 90% influence, try to stay right below it, 89%, whatever, is because there are random events that can happen in the game that can, on average, give a 10% influence to one of your factions. So if you're 90% or higher, you've now hit that 100 influence threshold, which you want to avoid. So try to avoid hitting 90% if you can help it. So anyways, we're going to look through each of these and see what we can do. So right here, we can lose 5 prestige. We'll go negative, but that's okay. It's not going to be too big of a hit. And that would pump us up to where we can then demand the military support. You see, we're already at the 75 needed, demand 150, but that would put our military at 30% loyalty, which would make them disloyal. So what we'll do real quick just to show you is we'll pop it. Oh, look at that. We have some negatives now that hurt us. We have lower manpower recovery, so we gain less men. And we have extra maintenance, which is going to cost us extra money. So that's why you want to try to avoid going into the negatives if you can. But if you can afford it, I mean, it's still not too critical versus that 150 military power we just gained. But we can pop this. Bam. They're loyal again. We're not at the 90% influence threshold. Good to go. So we are negative prestige, but you notice we're going to gain prestige every year. So we're still okay. We have some basic negatives, but that's not too horrible right there when you look at those negatives. I can tell you from, obviously a new player, you might freak out saying, oh God, that's a lot of red numbers. That's not bad. It's okay. Those are small numbers and it's not going to critically hurt you. So the last one that we haven't done yet, you notice we haven't gotten our Diplo point. We've gotten 150 for each of these, but we haven't for Diplo. Now, with Diplo, there's a good chance we're not going to get 150. The reason why is because of how low this influence. We'd have to do a lot to get that influence up. I actually, just off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that's possible at this moment. But what we are going to do is start out with the Monopoly charters, like the other ones. Lose 5 prestige, gain 10 influence, and 15 loyalty. So we got extra bonuses here, which is cool. Development cost, which is kind of nice. We can develop our areas for cheaper because of that. That's something to also consider when you're trying to do institutions. Anyways, so our diplomatic support, though, look at that. It's still only 50 because we haven't even hit the threshold for 100 Diplo. One thing to consider from this, though, is a good thing to get from merchants beyond the Diplo points is money. Ducats, money makes everything run. Money runs the world. And it's no different for this game. Money can run everything. Money can allow you to build new buildings for your economy. It can allow you to build new troops. Money can allow you to build new ships. It can allow you to get more expensive advisors. Money is huge. Economy is kind of a lot about what, or is probably 80% of what this game's about is economy, running your empire. So that can be a very nice thing that I usually do get a contribution when I'm also getting Diplo support from whoever my merchant guild or whatever they are, depending on the nation I am and the religion. So we still want to see if we can get this up at all. Now, this is where I was kind of briefly touching on it. You have an option to give territory to your estates, and that's under your production interface that we went through over here before. And that's what this tab is right above the Diplo tab we had looked at. So this allows you to assign territory to areas. As long as it has a green hash marks or green slashes, you can assign it. You'll notice I can't assign anything to the Dimmy here. See, it won't allow me. So, but we can check each. So we can't assign anything either to the merchant guilds. Ulema, we can assign. And the Umera, we can also assign. Now, a thing to consider is when you're assigning territory to an estate, though, you really want to pay attention to the production goods. The reason why is because areas with, let's say, cattle, the wool, grain, they're not worth much. They're honestly not worth very much. Or naval supplies, not worth much. They're all really, or fish, once again, not worth much. They're all really low value trade goods. Those territories are the ones that are really good to give to the Ulema or the Umera. And you pretty much base it on what the numbers here are. Like this area, I would prefer giving this to my Ulema because they are tax, which is what this side is. This is tax, trade, military. Essentially is the way to put it if you really, for new players, want to assign it to something. Since this already has a higher tax than it has a higher manpower modifier, I'd want to assign this generally to the Ulema, especially because it's a green province, so it's fairly worthless for my other estates, because of that higher number. But essentially, as long as it's in the green, you're fine. I mean, you like this territory here. I wouldn't want to assign these just because they have slightly higher value trade goods. But if I was going to assign this to something, you're still fine assigning it to either your Umera, which is military, or your Ulema. But like I said, try to do your low trade value goods first. Your cattle, your grain, your wool, your naval supplies, any of those are the ones that you want to assign first. The other consideration is you want to make sure you're not assigning trade nodes to anything but your trade estate. Because when an estate takes over a node, this is another part of it, it will have effects on everything else in that node. It will give what's known as autonomy, which is how autonomous or how independent those provinces are. It'll increase it from a 0 threshold, if it's part of one of your states, to 25%. And the more autonomy you have, the lower all of your stats are for that province. The tax you're gaining, the production you're gaining, the manpower you're gaining from it, all of that is lowered the higher your autonomy is. So when you're assigning territory to an estate, you want to be very conscious of that. And that's why you don't want to assign your trade nodes to any estates other than merchant guilds, because Ulema estate will give bonuses toward tax and will take away from the others with that autonomy. Umera will give bonuses toward manpower and military, take away from tax, trade, and you see how this works. So with merchant guilds, since trade nodes are so important for your overall trade, you want them to be the only ones in control of all of your trade nodes. That way, you're not taking away from your trade power and your trade goods and your goods produced in that node. That's pretty much as simple as I can make that. Now we can't get any territory for our merchant guilds here, which is what we were originally looking for. We don't need to give territory for Ulema or Romero. We already collected from them. They're loyal. Their influence, we don't want to get any higher. So we're not going to give them any territory at all. Merchant guilds, we can't give them any territory right now. Eventually we'll probably be able to, but for right now, can't do it. So we're just going to leave it alone. We could try to take like Selenik from the Dimi. Because like I said, you don't want to have other people in charge of your trade nodes, and Selenik is a trade node. But that'll piss off the Dimi even more right now. So we're just gonna leave it alone. Anyway, so unfortunately there's nothing else we can do for the merchant guilds. We're just gonna have to work with what we have. So I'm gonna be prioritizing demanding diplomatic support here. That way I can get my diplo points, because once again, monarch points are pretty much more important than anything in this game. I'm not going to bother asking for the contribution. The reason why is because it'll make them go negative for their loyalty. But also, I don't have any buildings right now that I want to build, because I can't build anything yet except for forts, your castles. And I don't want to build castles anywhere. They're 200 ducats. It's not worth the investment yet. Eventually, you'll build forts, but not yet. So that's all we're going to do with our estates. And you're going to do that, like I said, once again, before you unpause. You're going to be messing around with this. And feel free with different nations to play with this, to assign territories to different estates, etc. And to try out some of the different options that you can get. There's lots of different things that become available, once again, depending on what nation you are, what ideas you have, everything. So play with that. And the estates can be a very, very powerful tool that seem more complicated than they really are. And like I said, the most important thing to me with estates is making sure I'm getting my monarch points. They'll get you ahead. They'll get you techs earlier than other nations, etc. So, hope that was pretty clear.